Hello and welcome to Tactically Sound. I am Spencer and I'm joined by Matt, and we are discussing Fidelity versus Immersion in RPGs because it's fall. Matt and I have both been playing all of the immersive Fidelity RPGs, but there is a separation in a way that we've kind of realized maybe Fidelity kind of means your Red Dead Redemption 2s, your
right.
Cyberpunk 2077s, your Skyrim, your Witchers, Final Fantasy Remake, Starfield. And then that doesn't necessarily guarantee, though, that you have to have Fidelity to have Immersion. And the reason why this came up, Matt, you were telling me I'm going to finally play Unicorn Overlord.
Yes.
And, we've had our eye on Metaphor ReFantazio, and these are games that are not graphically mind-blowing with the truest fidelity of physics and all of that, but we're seeing that these are like conversational games in the game of the year discussion, right?
Right.
People are thinking about, are these game of the years? And for me, I've had some of the most immersive experiences with tactical RPGs where it's gameplay or turn-based RPGs. So, Matt, tell me about Fidelity versus Immersion, and why did you choose to play Unicorn Overlord? Maybe someone who's playing, Red Dead Redemption 2 or Cyberpunk would look at that game and go, why would anyone want to play that?
Right.
When you could play this crazy immersive Fidelity-based game.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good question because, I think every game has potential for immersion, right? And every game should be immersive, I believe. And Fidelity, right? There's levels to it. Not every game is going to have Fidelity. So it's kind of really interesting. And what draws our attention first? Is it the possibility of being immersed in a game? Or is it that Fidelity, wow, that looks like something in real life that we haven't seen in a video game before. And that's going to help me feel more immersed. So yeah, it's really interesting. For me with Unicorn Overlord, you know me, I've always been a Fire Emblem fan, been a JRPG fan. I grew up with this art style, watching Naruto and all my Attack on Titan, Death Note. And so this was an easy one for me to pick up. But at the same time, I can't deny that, that fidelity and beauty we get from AAA games. One of my favorite games is Red Dead 2. I'm so glad you mentioned that one. And part of the reason why I love that game is I feel like I can live in that world, and they have an online mode, and the online has its own mixed reviews and set of problems. But I wish that every high fidelity game, imagine if Skyrim had an online mode where we can all run around and play and experience what it really feel like to be a fantasy character. But yeah, sorry, remind me, I'm jumping around. This is a fun topic. Remind me of what you were asking about Unicorn Overlord again.
Well, yeah, what drew it to you? Because we've been playing more first-person RPGs like Starfield, and we've been playing, all these games that the fidelity of it is what's so impressive. And then a lot of people will say, oh, well, that leads to immersion. Okay,
but two things.
How
do
you go?
Spencer?
Yeah.
Two things. You're already getting my brain's tickling now. Yeah. So already, what drove me immediately to this tactical game is things are. You're right. Like you said, it's fall. Things are slowing down. We had our daylight savings. Depending on where you are living in the world, we have daylight savings over here. So the sun is going down much sooner, right? And this time of year, I always start craving my boards and swords. I want to slow down as well. I want to have that more tactical experience where I'm not feeling really stressed out, high energy, like summertime fun, right? I want to slow down. It's dark. Right? Maybe I want time where I can lift up my cup of coffee, sip it, think about what I'm doing. I get a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more scholarly, I guess, in my gaming.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what really first drew me in to picking up Unicorn Overlord. But also, the weird thing too is it's been hard for me to get fully immersed in the new Fire Emblem game and engaged. If you look back at on the channel, we have this opening of the game. We were so hyped for it. You guys should watch it. It's pretty good. But what's funny now, hindsight, I don't know if we really talked about it, but I haven't beaten that game. I was actually kind of disappointed with it. And Unicorn Overlord looks like the Fire Emblem direction I always wanted them to take. And it makes me sad because like I wanted Fire Emblem to be like this, but Unicorn Overlord is this. And I originally wasn't drawn to it because like unicorns, like I don't want to play a game with unicorns, but it's not as that dark. It's actually, but the funny thing, it is dark and that dark fantasy that we love. So don't get distracted with a silly name like Unicorn Overlord. We're not Chunicorns. It's just not Viva Pinata, guys. Like this is a cool, classic, dark fantasy JRPG tactical game. And the fun I get out of it reminds me more of the immersion I get out of games like Triangle Strategy or Octopath Traveler. And then mostly those two. And so, yeah, like this game is kind of me missing old Fire Emblem and what it brought to me, the immersion it brought me, and I'm definitely getting it more out of Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah, it's kind of like the difference when you're reading a book like Dune or a book like maybe like Harry Potter, where it's like you could feel like you're in the Harry Potter universe when you're reading Harry Potter. And you could feel like you're in the Dune universe when you're reading Dune, but Dune is way more dense. And I think like the Fidelity conversation is like Starfield, where it's like you have this dense world and you could touch everything, you could grab everything, you could build a ship from scratch, you can do all of this, but you're ultimately limited to your perspective. Whereas the immersive element of a tactical RPG is you can travel literally with it in your hand. You know, whenever I travel, I pick up a strategy RPG or a tactical RPG because there's, like you said, there's something cozy about it. And it's the ability to zoom out and control more of the outcome.
More control, yeah.
And feeling like you have a party, you're camping, you're resting, you're leveling characters up. And there's this ease at which you can immerse yourself. You could pause it, you could have a conversation with someone, and that makes it feel like you're taking a book with you and like reading it in the coffee shop, reading it on the plane. And whereas Dune, it's kind of like you need a focus. You can't be distracted. And so I think that the tactical RPG genre really succeeds at immersion if they can hook you into that first like 1 to 3 hours. Sometimes I just bounce off because I'm like, whoa, there's way too much going on. I can't think about all of these buttons and all of these.
Sometimes it could be dialogue heavy in the beginning as well. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not trying to watch a movie right now. I want to play a video game. But like you were saying, like more time, right, Spencer?
Yeah. And I think that you can see this play out perfectly because I think to me, tactical RPGs, turn-based strategy, and computer role-playing is all kind of siblings of each other. And so when you look at the Fallout franchise of like the originals being top-down perspective, and then going to Bethesda and becoming first-person kind of like open world, is there, to me, the world of Fallout is just as immersive, if not sometimes more immersive, in like the tactical isometric view as it is in the first person, but it takes a lot of patience to get there. And like it's not going to sell itself as well as a screenshot, but when you're playing and you're controlling and you're like, oh wow, like I am like watching this little character inside this big world and I have a lot of control, and there is this element of like, it's almost like I'm controlling a chess game. And if you're playing chess and you really want to win, you are bought into the stakes of that chess game. And, you know, at the top of the episode, I told you about a game called Battle Brothers, which is like this indie strategy RPG. They literally look like little wooden carved chess pieces. And, you know, the joke to myself is like looking at it is like, that art style is ridiculous. These little guys with these big heads.
Like you're saying, is not as impressive as a screenshot that you would maybe even see from Halo or something, right? Like I'm already more immersing an old Halo screenshot versus that chessboard. But Yeah, keep going. Yeah, I love what you're saying.
Well, yeah. So as you're playing and you get good and you win battle after battle, you're like, oh, I got to go another battle because like I just got all this loot and I'm going to go sell it at the next town and I'm going to level up these guys that got new level ups. I'm going to pick their perks. And when you have that control over your party, you do feel immersed. And I think that reminds me of Starfield, where when I'm playing Starfield, I'm bothered that I can't level up Andrasia. It's like, I could marry her. I could give her my stuff. I could build a house for us, but I can't control
Fidelity.
her perks. Yeah. I can't control her perks and I can't like give her a stat boost here. And that pulls me out of immersion because I want to be the tactician sometimes. And so
that's interesting.
I think that like there's an argument to be made that like if you give a tactical RPG its time, you will get hooked and addicted and you'll be turning the page next battle. And suddenly you're like in that world and I have these really visceral memories of like, you know, feeding my dogs lunch and waiting for them to eat and like just like with my Switch playing a tactical RPG every day. And that is sometimes more like memorable than playing like a really hi-fi game, because in that way that hi-fi game is kind of like an experience that we all share. It's like all of our experiences are kind of shared, but when we're doing the tactical over like view, it kind of sometimes feels like it's a sport in a way, and like how my game developed is very different than how your game developed. And maybe I took a totally different strategy than you did. And I invested in these types of units and you invested in those types of units. And I was more on the defense and you were more on the offense. And so it kind of separates like a sport does, where it's like there's different tactics that we use. And so, yeah, I think one other discussion point I think we should mention is the spin-off potential, because I said you're not going to get Starfield 2 and Fallout 5 in the same year, right? But Atlas can publish Metaphor ReFantazio and they could publish Unicorn Overlord in the same year, right? So I think we should see some spin-off potential for tactics. It's not always done the best. Sometimes it's really successful. Sometimes it's not. But what do you think of a Elder Scrolls Tactics? Would you greenlight that?
Okay, so this is where it kind of depends for me, because I don't think all tactic games are made equal. Just like how when you play any board games, like the functions of the board game, the gameplay can change from board game to board game. You know, Triangle Strategy plays different than Fire Emblem, plays different than Octopath Traveler, now plays different than Unicorn Overlord. Not all of them are going to be good for you. So what would be interesting for me to see is more within the community, what tactical games do Bethesda players play? What Skyrim players play? Elder Scrolls players play? Because I want to see if we line up or not, you know? And if it lines up with any of those games that I've just mentioned, I like it. But, you know, I've played some that maybe I might have to revisit them now that I've become more seasoned, but they weren't an instant hook for me like those titles I just mentioned. So the jury's still out for me whether Elder Scrolls would be good or not, because just like not every gameplay is right for everyone, right?
I think what could be compelling about a Fallout, because there was a Fallout Tactics game and I don't think it did super well, but like a new Fallout Tactics, a new Elder Scrolls Tactics, I think it could be cool to fill in the gap of lore. Like take like Skyrim books, Oblivion books, Morrowind books, and like pick a story and turn that into like a main quest campaign with characters and give them almost like anime style or illustrated like Banner Saga style character art, and like bring us into the world to fill in the gaps, like to kind of have us share a
maybe
lore
something
knowledge
combined with that, like a Banner Saga meets Gwent, like The Witcher's Gwent, where you control a character over an overworld, traveling through the lands of Tamriel, right? And entering into these strategic gameplay moments, right?
Yeah, because I think where Bethesda could improve their brand's depth is characters. Like if there's a character in a book, I assume the character matters, right? So how do we bring those characters to life? And it's cool because it's a spinoff. So if like you're like, oh, that's not how I picture that character, I like it better in my head. It's like, well, luckily it's separated out. But like, how do we bring some of those characters to life to bring the IP to be more sticky, to where it's like there is a sense, you could totally see a Starfield tactics where it's like you meet maybe one member of Constellation, before they got to Constellation, and they're doing these space battles and these alien battles and these pirate battles. Like, there's something cool there that I think could add to the immersion of a Bethesda title. Right. And you don't need the fidelity. You just need an art style that's compelling.
Right. And I think there's a place for fidelity, and fidelity is exciting. Like we were talking about in our last couple of episodes, how, that's what really brought me into wanting to get an Xbox 360. I know I see games like Halo, and I'm like, wow, this high fidelity, this is exciting. We get our Bethesda titles coming out too. Like, I want this kind of, it felt mature to me, like this kind of mature gameplay. I felt great. Like, I'm on the forefront of, video games and technology right now with this. But as, we keep playing, it's not, for me, it's not always about fidelity anymore. I hope there's going to be more games that push the boundary of reality meets video games in exciting, immersive ways, not just like throwing stuff in. That's what we've been seeing now with silly games like Forspoken. Like, they're trying to add the fidelity in terms of the dialogue, and you're like, I don't want to see people talk like, like me on the street or whatever. Like, I want more better writing, So, and I think that's what these tactical games and their stories do really well at. They have to sell you on the writing. And so maybe that's where their fidelity comes in, where it's more real to us, right? It's more tangible, these stories, instead of getting it in a visual way, if that makes sense.
Right. I think the key is, like, if you were to do a spinoff, you got to trust a team that is a heavyweight in the genre. Like, you got to go for an Atlas developer or a Square Enix developer, someone who like truly knows how to make waves in the genre. Not give it to a team that's like, oh, we kind of like loosely are attached. Yeah, we'll take your IP. This is an IP play. No, it has to be a full-blown Game of the Year contender play. And like, imagine characters from like Fallout New Vegas in that, like, Metaphor ReFantazio style, or like a Unicorn Overlord style, where it's like you're getting these cool cutscenes. It's charming. It has its own unique thing, but it's dense and it's big, and it's like it's a 50-hour RPG that you could sink your teeth in and spend $70 on and be totally happy. And you could get lost in the codex and the bestiary and all of these little things that draw us into the genre and immerse us into the genre through the writing, like you're saying. So that is our conversation about fidelity versus immersion. Play more tactical RPGs. Tell us your favorites. Play Battle Bros, play Unicorn Overlord. And tell us also, like, what are the factions or the characters or the books from Bethesda's IP that you think would make for a great gameplay focused, turn-based strategy RPG. Well, Matt, where can they follow you to get more JumbyJumbwa? You can follow me on Instagram or YouTube at JumbyJumbwa, JumbyJumbwa. I'll see you guys there. And you guys are already on the Yetti Den, so hit us with a subscribe, leave us a comment, and we will see you guys next time. Later. Bye. Peace.